So here's a topic that I have not shared much about. Here's a topic that is very personal to some, and for others, it's it's uh it's not really personal. I used to be on the side where I didn't really know what to say about this. When it came to abortion, when it came to whether people should have the rights to do it, whether it was wrong, whether it was right. I mean, I always knew where I stood as a man of God, but that still didn't debunk, I guess you can say, where all the diffusion and where all the arguments and where all the separation is taking place in the world off of this topic. I want to show you guys this clip here where we're going to be able to hear back and forth between a man and a woman thoughts and viewpoints and really just hearing, in first person, if you will, the debate. And this debate that you're going to hear, it's a debate that doesn't just happen between them. It's the same debate that the world is faced with when it comes to the topic of abortion. Now, this is interesting. Let's get into this.
The harms, because absolutely I think that
You're talking about life begins at conception then, right?
yes, we all know life begins at conception. Biologists confirm that life begins at conception.
Would you disagree?
I would, yeah.
Well,
When do you think you became you?
When did I become me?
Yeah, when did you come into existence as Ryan?
On September 9th of 1976, when my body left my mother's body and was detached and I began to breathe and
You
live
weren't
on my
living
own.
before you were evacuated out of the womb,
I had to be connected to my mother's body in order to be alive.
but you were alive because things were happening, right? Because you didn't magically, your mother's vaginal canal is not magical. It doesn't turn a non-living entity into a living entity. You were alive, you were born, and you changed locations. Now your degree of dependency changed, but you were still alive. There were, right, cellular reproduction was happening. You were growing, you were metabolizing food into energy. So if you look at the biological markers for what is alive and what is life, you were alive.
Are you speaking of a life in terms of a heartbeat or a soul? What do you mean by that?
I'm talking science. I'm saying science is definitive. We know human life begins at conception when two parts unite and form a unique whole that's never existed before, will never exist again. A unique DNA code has been created. And at that moment,
Plants have a unique DNA code. Would you
sure.
Is it wrong
Plants
to eat a
are
salad?
alive. Humans, there are lots of things
I don't
that are
think
alive.
anyone's eating the babies.
Yeah, animals are
I
alive.
hope not too.
But to say that you weren't alive until you left your mother's womb and that degree of dependency changed is a false statement to say, because you were obviously alive. You were.
Yep, I mean, that's where I put it at. And there's a little bit more. We're going to watch it. But before we keep going, you just got to realize the main thing, and this goes for just about anything when it comes to whether it's abortion, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's fornication, having sex outside of marriage, even getting married. In any of these topics, there's always the devil's advocate, which is what the male is playing, because there's that argument that everyone uses, and they say, well, plants have energy, plants have cells. So, like how we said, are we not supposed to eat salad? I think that's when we start stretching and going out just a little bit too far instead of really trying to learn. A lot of people are rejecting knowledge. This is the time. Bible talks about that there's going to be this time in the last days where people are rejecting sound doctrine. They do not want to hear what is right. They don't want to learn anything. They kind of are stuck in their own deceitful knowledge, their own deceitful tactics. You're born in your mother's womb. Christ talks about that. He tells us, when we were in our mother's womb, he was forming us. He knew us then. He was already setting out plans and setting out a future then. And I used to be the person that I didn't really have a strong side on what I felt about this topic, whether people should be getting abortions or not. But let's keep listening to this. Let's hear the rest of this clip. And we're going to talk about what side we need to be on. Let's get into this.
Living.
Well, it seems like there's a different definition of life.
Yes.
You've got a social, maybe a metaphysical definition.
Life is not one dot, it's a many-sided diamond, and that all has to be taken into account.
I think scientifically, if we're talking about cellular life,
Yes.
life on Mars or whatever, babies are alive, life begins at conception.
Yeah,
But
it's
you're
human
making a
life.
more spiritual or argument, I suppose.
I'm saying that bacteria is alive. I'm saying that small cells are alive. I'm saying that human beings are alive. The animals are alive. But there are degrees to where that life becomes something that thinks on its own, decides on its own, chooses what it believes.
Is that the threshold for when inalienable rights kick in?
It's not a threshold. It's just really, like he said, bacteria is alive, other things are alive, plants are alive, trees are alive, humans are alive. But you can't compare humans to trees and plants and all of those things. Like humans, we are just superior than the plants and trees. So we don't have the same lifestyle. We don't make the same decisions. Heck, trees don't make decisions. Plants do not make decisions. We are actually the caretaker of the trees and of the plants. So it's just a different level. And like I said, it just gets to that point where people, I feel that they're trying so hard to hold on to maybe their belief of maybe it not being wrong. So they use these examples that this gentleman is using here, but I think it's just a stretch. It's a little bit too far. And it's not really making sense because we're not really talking about life in the grand scheme of making a choice or waking up in the morning or being able to breathe. But a child, while it's being formed in the mother's womb, is alive. We go and we hear heartbeats. We go to doctor's appointments to check on our alive baby. Yeah, the baby has not come into this world just yet because there is a process that it has to go through, but it is alive. It's just processing while already being alive until it is ready to come into the world, until its organs and everything have been fully developed, but it is developing. That's why there is a stage where you hear a heartbeat. That's why there also is circumstances where there are some mothers who endure miscarriages. The miscarriage isn't just a miscarriage. The miscarriage is a loss of a life, a loss of a pregnancy. I know they call it terminating the pregnancy when it comes to abortion because I think they think by saying terminating the pregnancy, just ending it is something that sounds a little bit more, I guess you could say, soft to the ears. It doesn't seem so harsh because the word abortion has so many negative connotations to it. But let's keep this going. It's interesting. Like I said, a lot of people, I feel that instead of trying to learn something, they run away and they use like these very far-fetched outside examples and metaphors to try to prove their point, but I don't think it works. Let's keep this going.
When you can think and function for yourself or experience or feel.
I think that what it comes down to is that there should not be a legislative force that is making that decision for a woman. That should be her choice.
But the question is you have to answer, because I'm pro-choice of many things. I'm speaking as the only female here. I believe women should have the right to choose if they marry, who they marry, what education. Sorry. The education, their career, their health care. But I don't think I, as a woman, get to choose whether or not a human being has value or gets to live. Because it's not, I think that's what has to get answered at this whole debate level when you start saying, well, I don't think the state should legislate. Well, why do we have laws, right? There's a lot of debate about how many laws we have, overuse of laws. And that's a serious conversation that we can have. But I think that fundamentally, the purpose of government is to create laws and have laws that at the very fundamental level ensure that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And that's a tough thing because, like how the gentleman was saying, and she was talking a little bit about laws there at the end, but the gentleman a little bit earlier was asking, was she coming from a spiritual standpoint? And that's kind of the tough thing here because carnally, if you will, I'm in one of those positions where it's like, If people are going to do it and they're so passionate about doing it and having an abortion, well, go ahead. I mean, if that's your thing, do it. If you're not going to listen to anyone and you don't want to hear any wise counsel or you have your mind made up and that's what you're going to do, well, hey, it's your life, you know. But spiritually, as a man of God, I agree with her where it's like we don't really have the authority or what makes us, because the world gave us the authority and we do have free will of choice. But let's flip that free will of choice and the authority that the world has given us to go and make that decision to have an abortion on our own. What makes us think? Let's ask ourselves that question. What makes us think that we have the right to accept the right to terminate the existence of a child? When it comes to the world today, I think the only reason that this is such a hot topic is because there is a lot of sex that goes on, and it's not love making. It's just not, you know, two people coming together really wanting to share and express their love for one another through a physical connection. It's not really that these days. I mean, you look at the hookup culture, you look at the way that the world is when it comes to dating these days. I mean, there's just it's ridiculous. If you're really knowledgeable about it, it's pretty terrible right now. And with that terrible dating world and how everything is going and how it's moving, I truly believe that since there is such a terrible amount of people having sex outside of marriage, having unprotected sex, and they're having all these children that they don't want to have with people that they don't want to have them with, making mistakes, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing in the first place. It ties in, it connects with how this generation and how the world has moved into such a non-accountability place. We don't want to take accountability. And in an easy way, instead of taking accountability, it's easier for me to make it up in my mind that this pregnancy that's going on, it does not involve a real life. I'm not terminating a real life. I'm just terminating a pregnancy the pregnancy doesn't produce the life. The life is already there. It's just a holster. It's just a holding place until the baby is ready to come into the world. But the baby's alive. The baby can hear you through there. The baby's kicking. They're using limbs. I mean, there's motion. There's things taking place. The child's alive. But I think that since so many people don't want to take accountability, it puts people in a position, man, where this will forever be a debate. This will forever be something that I feel that not everybody will ever get to a point where they're all on the same side and in one agreement about what should happen. Should there be free access or any access at all for that matter to abortion? But furthermore than that, typically when it comes to abortion, it's always typically the women that are being bashed or maybe talked to or talked at for that matter. Never have I ever had the opportunity to see what it was like on a man's aspect, because men typically don't speak up about these things. And if they've had abortions or if they've had to endure, a partner that they had an abortion with, maybe it doesn't affect them. Maybe I've never seen it. But this clip that you're getting ready to watch was a man who had the opportunity to explain how during that time of the pregnancy, he believed that it was life, and he expresses that, and really being able to hear the hurt and the pain inside of his voice because he had to go through what he went through. Let's check this clip out.
My friend said we drove quite a little bit to be here today. Before I get into my question, I just wanted to say my daughter's name is Clementine. She was 5 months along when she was aborted in New Jersey. My daughter was healthy. I begged her mother not to go through with the abortion. For 5 months, we went back and forth. I don't hate my ex. I love her. And I'm working on forgiving her. She was confused, she was uncertain, and she had doubts. Mike Tyson has doubts before he gets into a ring. This was an option, and she took that option, and she regrets it now. Why do you think, and this is just a thought that just came into my head, why do you think that people dehumanize my Clementine? Why wasn't she human enough for people to help me mourn? Why wasn't she human enough for people to talk about? My mother was given birth to prematurely at 5 months. My daughter was 5 months. I didn't get to say goodbye to my daughter. I didn't know about the abortion until after it happened. I begged her not to do the appointment. She told me that she canceled it. My daughter was 5 months, and she was ripped apart. My daughter doesn't get a funeral. My daughter doesn't get respect. As my friend asked, yeah, medical testing on a healthy baby. Why? My girlfriend didn't pay for the abortion. The clinic did. How much money did they make off of my daughter's body? How many other babies did the doctor kill since she's been dead? This has been a month and 3 days. This happened March 12th and 13th. My daughter was conceived October 25th. She was supposed to be born July 20th. My daughter was a person. My daughter is an angel. And I pray for her every single day. I talk to her. I still feel like she's there. I feel like on July 20th, my daughter's going to be there. She doesn't get a funeral. I have her sonogram picture the first time I heard her heartbeat. And I bring this up to people and I say, well, she had a heartbeat. Wasn't she a person? And I'm being told she's a fetus, which, by the way, everybody, that's Latin for offspring. Okay? So I don't know why we're speaking Latin. I speak English. And my daughter not only matters, but I do not want my daughter to be forgotten. I want my daughter's story to be talked about. I want her to be remembered. She wasn't just a fetus. And yeah, maybe she was just a 10%. Maybe. But she was a lot more than that for me. For 5 months, I'm told by my friends, I'm crying over somebody I never met before. I'm told by people, well, she wasn't even a person. She was just a fetus. She wasn't even a baby. She wasn't fully developed. My daughter was still growing. And my relationship with my daughter was going to grow for the rest of our lives. Why isn't my daughter human enough for people to care? Why isn't my daughter woman enough for her to have a body and for her to have a choice? My original question when I was coming up here was, can I see the clamps?
I want to answer that question. It just came to me. Just seeing it this time with you guys. When he said, why wasn't she woman enough? Why wasn't she human enough? Pretty much, why didn't no one care? We're living in one of the most selfish times we have ever lived in. And boy, it's terrible. And it's tough because the fact that these services are even available, which tells me that majority of our doctors couldn't really be believing in Christ here, or at least following the life that Christ wanted them to follow, because I feel that if I was a doctor, or I couldn't be a doctor, even if I was qualified, because I wouldn't be able to do that procedure. Not without feeling convicted, not without feeling wrong or bad. And it's just sad to see this father, and probably plenty of other fathers and people and other men who have been in this position. It's sad to see it. The effects that they go through and the lack of empathy that people could have. You know, I feel that we're trying to water this down, like a lot of other things in the world. Trying to water a lot of things down so that way it doesn't mean anything anymore, so that when people are doing it, it just becomes a regular day-to-day activity. But abortion is not regular day-to-day activity. I know it's happening every day and probably more often than what it needs to, but abortion is definitely not a day-to-day activity. It's not brushing your teeth. It's not like taking a shower. It's not like going to work. We really have to understand what we're doing and the long-term effects that we're seeing in other people. And that could happen to you. That could be you if you choose to do something like that. And just the unfortunates of a life, an innocent life that could have blossomed into something so great. Just never know what God had in plan and in store for those people that have been aborted. Just something to think about, man. Pray for the world, man. Pray for people who might be feeling alone, that they have no other way, that they have no other option, or they feel that abortion is the only thing they can do. Pray for these people, man. You may not know them, but you could just send prayers up because God knows them. And he can touch them, man, and let them know that, hey, things do get better. It may seem hard, it may seem tough, but things get better. And I'm pretty sure that in the long run, anyone who's been in the position where they thought maybe they wanted to get an abortion, people who haven't done it, and then they go on in life, pretty sure no one is ever thinking, man, I should have went through with that abortion. Oh, man. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure, man, people are glad that they stuck it through. So stick it through, man, and keep praying for people in the world. Like I said, the world is just turning into a very, selfish, very dangerous, very toxic environment, man. But we got to keep prayers up for the world and for the people in the world. But that's all I got for you guys on this one, man. Thank you guys for watching. To the next one, I'm out.